So you got a dryer, drum's turning, but the clothes are coming out still wet. It's a good chance it may be the thermostat. So let's fix it. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to diagnose this thermostat, confirm that it's what you need, and show you how to install it. So before we start, we want to make sure we keep ourselves safe in doing the repair. So we're going to want to remove the power from the dryer. So we're going to do that either by pulling the cord out of the wall, or if it's not easily accessible, you're going to want to turn off your circuit breaker, or if you have the screw-in fuse type, you'll want to remove your fuses. To do that, we're going to need a few basic tools. We're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers, basic Phillips screwdriver, a multimeter in order to check that thermostat, and I usually like to have just a magnetic tray to put the screws in so I don't lose them. Oh yeah, we have a great big hammer here, but I don't think we're going to need that today. So now our first step is going to be from the back side of the dryer, just to remove 3 screws so that we can remove the top. And they're just located right under here, and they're just regular Phillips screws. Now the top just gets pulled straight back and lifted off. So our next step we're going to do is we're going to take a couple screws out here in the top corners of the console, and so we can tip that forward and remove the wiring off the control panel. So our goal in doing this is to get to the point where we can actually take the front of the dryer off completely. So with the screws removed, we're just going to grip the console, and while lifting up and pulling back towards myself, be able to tip this forward. And now we can start removing the wires off the control board. So just squeeze the locking tab and just give it a pull. And this will be our next one. And now we can set the console to one side. So our next step is going to be to open our door. And what we're after is these 2 screws. They have to be removed. Once they're removed, we're going to want to remove these 4. And in doing so, that will release the front. When you go to take that last screw out, that front is going to want to come away from the machine. So I usually just put my leg against it, just so that it can't take off. Now with the front loose, we're just going to tip it forward, and there's a wiring harness here for the door switch that we have to remove. So now we're just going to release this wiring harness from the switch. One of the things you'll want to watch when doing this is all the metal pieces in these machines are just stamped out. They're not necessarily milled smooth, so they are sharp. So you just want to be careful that you're not going to cut yourself when your hand comes up against something. So with that wiring harness removed, we're just going to tip the front forward and lift it off the brackets at the bottom. So our next steps will be is to remove this upper bracket and the lower chute, and then we'll be removing the front bulkhead. Now I know this seems like a lot of parts and a lot of screws, but you'll actually find the repair is quite easy once you get into it. So we have a screw here. There's another one straight up from here. And the same thing on the other side. Now we can just lift the bracket off the cabinet. You'll see there's a wiring harness held in a clip, and we're just going to pop that out of there so it's free and clear, and we'll set this where we don't need it. Just going to again free the harness from this clip so we can set it out of our way. We also have a wiring harness that goes to the light bulb, so we'll just want to pop that off now while we're right here. Fantastic. So now we're just going to remove the lower blower housing. We have one screw right here. And we may as well remove the lint filter right now because it'll be in our way when we go to pull this housing off. Let me just set that inside. From the other side, we're going to want to remove the screw as well. And that allows that to come right off. And we'll set that out of the way. So our next objective is to remove the front. So you can see we have a little wiring harness here. So to disconnect the harness, we just got to squeeze that tab and give it just a little tug, and it separates. So now we're just going to remove the two screws on either side. And the nice thing about this is that bulkhead is locked into the cabinet with 4 tabs. So if we take all the screws out, nothing's going to come falling out on the floor on us. With those screws removed, just going to hold that tub towards the back, lift this bulkhead off the tabs, and the bulkhead's removed, and we'll set it to one side. So now we want to remove our drum. And to do that, we have to release the belt off the motor pulleys. So if between my thumbs was the actual drum, you can see how the belt comes around the drum, around the idler pulley, and onto the motor pulley. So to take it off, all I did was basically apply a little pressure onto this idler, allowing that to come slack. I flipped it off that pulley, then the idler pulley, let that go, and then my drum and belt were free to come out. So our belt is free. We're actually going to use that to help support the drum when we take it out. So now that we have the drum out of the machine, and you can now see the inside workings of it, as well as the thermostat that we're going to change, you'll also notice that it's a little hairy in there. And that kind of dust and lint, although all dryers are prone to it, this is getting to the point of being excessive and a concern for fire. So we're going to vacuum that all out and take that concern right away. So we get all the lint out and we managed to find a dime. Now, finding money in a dryer is not unusual, but it's also a good indicator. If you find a lot of money in the bottom of your dryer, then that tells you that the seals that go around your drum are worn, and you're getting a lot of air leakage to the point that larger items that are floating free in the drum can actually fall through. So if you're finding a lot of money at the bottom of your dryer, you probably want to be thinking about having those drum seals replaced. So now we're going to just take our multimeter, and I'm just going to set it so that for continuity, so I'll just touch the two leads together, making a completed circuit, and the meter gives a nice beep. So just for fun, we'll check our new thermostat by putting the probes on either connector, and it beeps. So our thermostat is good. The next step is to pull one wire off the thermostat, and then we'll do the same test on it to see if it's good or bad. So no sound, so that thermostat is bad and does require being replaced. There's two different types of thermostats. One that once it electrically opens, it never resets. And the other is a cycling thermostat that will, once it cools off, it'll reset itself. Typically, you'll find thermostats on your heater are one time only. And that's the case with this one, as well as this thermostat. We'll take our new thermostat, set it into place. We'll tighten that screw until I get the other one in, just so it's a little bit easier to get them lined up. Now we just need to reinstall our wires. And your thermostat is replaced. So now that our Thermostat is installed. We're ready to install the drum. So using our belt again to assist, just move the drum into place. Set the back edge up on the drum rollers. And we'll lower our belt into the general location it would have been to line up with our motor and idler pulley. And as we showed earlier, where we just reached in and freed the belt from the idler pulley, we'll just do the same process but in reverse. Just reaching in and find the belt and then put the belt onto the motor pulley. Taking the left side of the motor pulley belt, raising the idler pulley up, slipping the belt underneath it, and release. And you can give it a turn just to make sure that everything's lined up. May want to tweak the belt a little bit to get it straightened away if you see it's really far off track. So now we're just going to put the front back on. And again, I mentioned earlier that there's notches here in the cabinet where these locking pins for the bulkhead slip into place, which makes it real easy when you put it back together. You're just going to swing it around. You'll be looking to get these drum rollers just down on this bottom edge of the drum, and then negotiate those locking tabs into those spots on the cabinet. And there's the other side, just that easy. And now we'll put our 4 screws back in to hold it, and we'll consider that piece done. So we'll put our 4 screws in, 2 on this side, 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom. Snug those up. Then we'll just move over to the other side and do the same. Now that that's secured, it's not a bad time to bring your electrical harness back up into place. But now we just want to drop our harness into that clip. This is the harness for the door switch. And then we had one we removed for the light right here. So we'll reattach that. Now we can move on down to the lower end and put that lint filter blower housing in place. That simply just slides back up to where your lint filter comes through. There's 2 screws that go in, one right here and one over on this side. As well as we have the wiring harness for our sensor that needs to be reconnected. There, with all that done, we're now ready to put the front back on. Okay, with our front bulkhead in place, next piece we want to reattach is the top bracket. And you'll notice on the bracket there's these little L-shaped hooks. And on the cabinet, it's a little hard to see with that foam tape there, but there's a notch right there that it locks into. And it's the same on this side. You can see that notch a little better. We're just going to bring this up into place. Make sure this wire's tucked into this notch. Lock that side in. Move over to the other side. And you'll have to wiggle that corner around a little bit. There it is. You just push that down. Now you just need to put the screws in for it. There is one from the front and one from the top. And it was the same for the other side. One in the front and one in the top. Perfect. So now we're ready to install the front. And putting the front on, you'll notice there's a locator bracket down here, and there's one on the other side. And on your front, so on the bottom of your front panel, there's a slot on this side and down at the other end as well. And those slots go on those locating tabs. So now we just bring our front around. drop those slots onto those tabs. Bring it up towards the dryer. Remember, we have to connect that wiring harness for the light switch. And that just simply pushes into place. Marry the front up to the dryer, and we'll put a screw in to hold it. One more on this side. 2 screws over on this side. And if you remember, inside the door, there were 2 down here that we're going to put in now. And seeing as we have the door open, we may as well put the lint filter back in. Close our door. Now we just need to install our console. Okay, so now we're going to hook up our wiring. And we'll just start with that blue connector. And if you remember, everything was color coded. Makes it nice and easy. Just push it into place. We'll do the pink one next. And we have a large white one. And the last one we have is this multicolored harness. And the only place that can go is right there. And all your wires are connected. So now we'll just move our console into place. And at the same time, we've got that harness from the door switch, and we'll just put it back into its little keepers so it doesn't get into trouble. And there's another one here as well. And just tuck those wires in. Perfect. Now to go back to the console, it's into place, and we just got to give it a little push. And you can see and hear it lock into place. Now we're ready to put the top back on. So now that our console snapped back into place, we just have to put our 2 screws in, 1 in each corner. And now our top is ready to go back on. Just lay the top into place and slide it forward. Now we just have our 3 screws to put in across the back. So now the dryer is all back together. Give yourself a pat in the back. Like I said earlier, it's a lot of screws and a lot of pieces, but you'll see it if you follow step by step, it's quite easy to do. So now's the time you want to make sure the dryer is back into place, and you want to reconnect your power. Either put that cord back into the outlet, or you're going to want to reset your breaker, or if you've got the screw-in type fuses, screw in your fuses, and you're good to go.